So today we're going to recap the season premiere of Last of Us. It was absolutely electric. I'm here with my boy Damon. Now, real quick, neither of us have played the video game, so we're experiencing the story in real time. We don't know the spoilers yet, so keep that in mind when we go through this. With that being said, Damon, welcome. Glad to have you on. Before we dive in, what are your initial thoughts from the episode?
Yo, happy to be on, man. I just want to say that from the beginning, based on the trailers and the news clippings that we've seen recently, this has been expected to be HBO's next big budget action-y flick. We know that House of Dragon is in hibernation. They've just canned Westworld and several other initiatives that are tied to their HBO Max platform. So it makes sense they're funneling a ton of cash into this project. This is going to be the replacement for Westworld. It's a takeoff on dystopia, science fiction, and all that good stuff. And they're doing their classic HBO tricks here by borrowing heavily from other casts on their own platform and from elsewhere. We see the lead, Pedro Pascal, from Mandalorian. Also some borrowing from Thrones, Silicon Valley, Euphoria, True Detective, and just, also members from the actual cast of the OG video game, which I thought was pretty cool as well.
Yeah, to your point on the borrowing, that was the biggest character that I recognized was Pedro Pascal, right? That's his name. He was Oberyn Martell in Game of Thrones, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so very interesting. Okay, so we start off, we get this opening scene where it tells us it's 1968 on the set of a talk show. We got two docs being interviewed. The guy with the glasses in the middle is called Dr. Schoenheis. The dude on the far left is called Dr. Newman. So both docs are epidemiologists, and they're talking about pandemics and how they can spread. Schoenheis starts talking about air travel and how that can facilitate the spread, but he's mainly focusing on influenza-like viruses. The host then pivots to Newman, who doesn't seem too concerned about pandemics caused by viruses or bacteria. Instead, he talks about fungus. So then I got to mention at first that the talk show host, he's doing this annoying talk show act, trying to be funny, making sure he gets his one-liners in. But Newman is completely unfazed and just calmly explains why the prospect of a pandemic caused by fungi scares the living shit out of him. He talks of a fungus that could take over a human's mind, devouring the host from within, but keeping the victim alive solely for the purpose of spreading the virus. Now, fungi can't survive if the internal host temperature is over 94 degrees, but if the world gets slightly warmer, they might evolve, and then all of a sudden they can survive in humans. Now we have a problem. So to me, the scene is ominous because you can literally see the host smirk start to disappear from his face. Newman's soliloquy completely shifts the tone of the audience as well. The terror is palpable, and you can hear the host stutter as he cuts to commercial break. I mean, what are your thoughts, man? That's the opening scene. Strong stuff, right?
Yeah, I thought what stuck out to me about that was the focus on the evolution of the disease, especially, on the heels of being in the post-COVID world. That was kind of surreal, I thought. The quote that really stuck out to me from this was the line, "They seek not to kill, but to control." I love that foreshadowing, man. And then the cinematography actually gave me shades of the one of the ending scenes in The Joker, when they're on the talk show and it's kind of filmed from the audience's perspective, and there's that eerie mood that you mentioned creeping in the whole time. But overall, definitely a tone setter.
So then we cut right into the intro edit. They leave us on that cliffhanger at the talk show. And I thought this was really well done. The CGI was top notch. We basically get this first person shot of fungi spreading throughout the forest floor. I'm also going to mess up fungi and fungus all the time. It is what it is. Yeah, but we're getting the fungi spreading through the forest floor. They're growing, proliferating. It would be an incredible thing to watch while tripping on acid. But what'd you think about that intro?
Didn't it give you just a hint of Thrones and Dragon and a little Westworld too?
Yeah, same as it gave me some True Detective as well. It's just the eerie music. So now we cut to 2003, where we see a girl wake up. We find out that her name is Sarah. They're playing some Avril Lavigne on the radio, very appropriate for that time. Could have bumped some 50 as well. So Sarah wakes up, then has to wake her dad, Joel, up as well. We know that Joel is one of our main protagonists, and from what we can gather, the mom isn't in the picture. So Joel's essentially a single parent, but Sarah basically has to mature very quickly, and she's raising herself, and she's almost taking care of her dad as well. Not even almost, she's taking care of both of them. So she's taking on the mother figure while also being a daughter. She cooks breakfast at first. So apparently it's Joel's 36th. Sarah cares, but Joel doesn't seem to give a shit. He's somewhat recovered from his duel with the Mountain back during Game of Thrones. Incredible plastic surgeons that the Dornish people have. But we then see Joel's brother, Tommy, pull up for breakfast as well. They end up talking about some good old blue-collar shit, some contracting job where the concrete guys aren't showing up, being a bunch of dickheads. You can never trust those concrete guys. Joel then promises to bring a cake back to celebrate his own birthday. We see Sarah grab some bills and a watch from her drawer before she leaves for school. She also pulls out this sweet pocket knife, all right, which I want to make a note of. But as they leave the house, we see their neighbors, the Adlers, I believe. Basically, you just got this like super old woman in a wheelchair. I'm just gonna call her fucking Grandma Adler. She's like dead essentially. Then we got this like older guy, Mr. Adler. He tells Sarah to come by, visit his wife Connie, right? Sarah definitely doesn't want to chill, but her dad basically is like, hey, you should go do it. So the scene ends with them driving away, taking Sarah to school. It shows that it's September 26th in Austin, Texas. So yeah, talk to me about that scene.
Honestly, man, I love me a blue-collar hero, and I feel like we got that in Joel. We haven't played the video game, obviously, so we don't really know much about this dude, but it seems like what he's getting set up for. But you can also tell my man has some demons, too, when you look in those eyes. Those tired eyes, the shirt's on inside out. He's hustling to work. We notice he's got that veteran bumper sticker, so there might be some PSD themes to draw in later on. He's got some stuff that we see play out later on that definitely adds up with the way they characterize him in the beginning.
He's not a deadbeat. Even though he's rolling out of bed, like his hair looks like shit, like we can tell that his daughter really loves and respects him. And this seems more like a guy who's just worn out by trauma and responsibility as opposed to some guy who's just being lazy. Because he's not being lazy. He's basically like, he's stressed out about the job. But good stuff right there. Already just strong fucking start. So then, we get to the school scene. We see Sarah, like, it's just quiet. I mean, there's no dialogue really. You hear the teacher talking. And Sarah's just kind of chilling. School ends. She takes the bus into the city. Now, this entire scene, there's no dialogue. You literally just see her getting on the bus, rolling down into the city. By all accounts, this is a totally normal sunny day in Texas, but the sunlight feels dim. It feels like a constant sunset. It's eerie as hell. The entire bus ride is just silent. Sarah pulls up to the watch store to get the watch fixed. The store owner's wife ends up sprinting out super freaked out. She's speaking in Arabic to the owner of the watch store, telling him basically like, close up shop. We hear cop cars and sirens throughout the city, which we kind of hear throughout the day, even as Sarah is initially on the bus. Shit is about to go down. You can kind of just feel it. And now all of a sudden, as Sarah leaves the watch store, the sky is now turning slightly gray. It just seems like things are about to go crazy. So yeah, what'd you think about that? Like, what'd you feel, man?
Foreshadowing 101, man. Like the way that they were talking about the virus on the radio sweeping over from Asia through Africa at the time. And It was like Tommy and Joel weren't very concerned because that's just the kind of guys they are. You know what I mean?
Did you have to go re-listen, like go rewind that to catch that? Because it's like you can hear it faintly in the radio, but it's not like...
No, you got to zoom in on that one. And then when she's at school, you see it's the first case somebody's twitchy in her classroom. So it's like that's like a symptom. We see some stuff really start to go down. And then, when you're like 12 or 13, you first learn about like what a nuclear holocaust could be like and like what could go down. You hear like the Red Dawn alarm. And it's like, ring, ring, and the lights are going on. And you're like, this is a frightening situation she found herself in now.
It felt like, you ever see The Mist, like that Stephen King film, The Mist? Yeah, yep. It felt like that, where like everything's like a little bit too peaceful early on, but it's like low-key chaotic as hell. Okay, so Sarah gets the watch, which is now fixed. She arrives at the Adler's house, her neighbors, to go visit Connie. Connie welcomes her in. 3 seconds in, we immediately get an idea of why Connie has no friends and is no fun. She just like is this crazy Jesus freak. And then she wants to make cookies, but she shoots down the idea of chocolate chip. She suggests raisins, or not even suggests, just basically says we're making raisin cookies, but not even oatmeal raisin. So what a fucking loser. Sarah's walking around the Adler's house. Then she goes and looks through some DVDs, and we get this crazy shot of Grandma Adler in the background, just mouth agape, twitching and shit. And it's crazy because, like, with the way they shot it, she's essentially out of focus. You can't see, like, it's hard to see something coming out, but you're just like, holy shit, she looks possessed.
Scariest shit of the whole episode.
Scariest shit in the whole episode. And you're just like, she's infected. Someone should probably just shoot her in the head right now. Sarah asks to borrow the DVD, then dips out of there. As she walks out, we see the Adler's dog, Mercy. Is that an Australian Shepherd? Anyways, it's staring at Grandma Adler, just like, it knows what's up. So as Sarah leaves the Adler's house, we see fighter jets flying overhead. What the fuck is going on, David?
Dude, the fighter jets going across the top just builds and builds on the tension that we just saw. And I think one of the little things to zoom in on is, as she makes that visit too, when you mentioned the religious aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times in shows like this where you build towards a big catastrophic event or tragic event, One of the things that comes out after is like the fragmentation of belief systems and like who prevails in the end. And what was the religious references, like kind of like making sense of tragedy, because when you look at what this actually plays out like, there's definitely some like plague kind of vibes from what's going down here. So there could be some justification there. There's a reap what you sow sort of element there to it.
That's a great point, because it's like punishment almost, because early on, basically what the first scientist says is like, if the Earth stays at its current temperature, then we don't have to worry about the fungi evolving. But, you know, it's implied that like the shit that we did at that point is what caused the global warming, and then all of a sudden now you're kind of creating your own plague. So that's a fucking good call. Okay, so now it cuts to Sarah back at home. We can hear some bits and pieces of the news in the background. What I thought was really interesting here is that throughout the entire day, she's kind of like trying her best to figure out what's going on in the news, right? She's like asking people and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden when the news is on, she's not paying attention at all. Like, and you can kind of hear in the background, like it's foreshadowing some sort of infection, some virus. We hear a news reporter talk about street drugs being the cause of something. As you know, they love to blame street drugs. Her dad returns, and Joel and Sarah watch a movie. He obviously forgets the cake. Sarah gives him the watch as a present. It was originally his, we find out, but it broke, and obviously he didn't care about it, so she went and fixed it for him. They watched the DVD that they borrowed from the Adlers. It's called Curtis and the Viper 2. Father and daughter watch the movie to celebrate his B-Day. Sarah passes out because she's bored. But it's just a nice evening. And then Joel gets a call from Tommy, his younger brother, Tommy. So Tommy's in jail. Of course, it's not Tommy's fault, obviously. So we're already kind of getting a good picture of Tommy as sort of a fuck up that always gets into shit. But Joel leaves to go bail Tommy out of jail so he doesn't have to spend the fucking weekend there. And end scene.
One thing to zoom in on that Tommy point towards the end, he does give a little bit of hysteria off because it seems like there might be something going down at the jail that's riling people up. The overall temperature level, if we have a thermometer gauging where we are at the zombie movie, based on every experience you've ever had with Dawn of the Dead, Walking Dead, I Am Legend, all the above, we're just probably at about like 70 degrees, 75. It's getting a little warm.
Shit's already going down. So now, next scene, Sarah wakes up to the sound of helicopters, sirens, and explosions going off. She doesn't know that Joel left to bail out Tommy, so she wanders the house alone, turns on the news, and sees a scary-ass warning, like basically like an Amber Alert, but in 2003, telling residents to stay indoors and that law enforcement will give them further instructions. Yeah, fucking right. All of a sudden, we see Mercy, the Adler's dog. At first, I thought Mercy was going to be infected, but she's not infected. She sprints over. It's just like literally banging on the door like a human, begging to come in. Dog is so cute, but it's also harrowing. Mercy gets let in. She's absolutely spooked. Sarah tries to bring Mercy back to the Adlers, but Mercy is like, fuck that shit. And dogs always know, and just dips. Mercy's like, I'm out of here. I'll take my chances. Sarah proceeds to enter the Adler's house to explore. Just bad decision.
Empty wheelchair, baby. That's when you know shit's gonna hit the fan.
Yeah, because that old lady could not walk prior to the fungal infection. She could not walk. So Sarah walks in, and it's completely dark. The house is disheveled, and then we see blood everywhere. Mr. Adler is mangled and bloody and asking for help. And then we see the camera slowly roll over, and we see Grandma Adler in the middle of feeding on Connie. Yikes. We see the fungus coming out of her mouth. Absolutely fucking disgusting. Their eyes go dead, too. Like the human's eyes go dead. She unleashes this blood-curdling scream and starts chasing Sarah. Like, you know she's going to be fast. So Sarah runs out of the house, and on cue, Joel and Tommy return, and Tommy's got a rifle and Joel has a wrench. Grandma Adler like trips over, and then she gets up, charges Joel, and he just fucking bashes her in the head. Very nice connect. Home run. And now this part is kind of funny because Sarah's like, you killed her. And I'm like, dude, how do you feel? Like, I'm sorry, that lady's over. Like, once you saw the shit coming out of her mouth, man, but it shows how much of a heart Sarah has.
And that Joel's got some cold blood in his system.
Joel's got some cold blood. I would have been like, shoot her in the fucking head to confirm, Dad. But anyways, this is the first like conflict that we get in this episode. So what are your thoughts on this?
One big weakness that you see in these zombies is that they do struggle to actually control their range of movements in a way that's graceful. Right. Like how many doors does Grandma run into? Like 7 or 8 by the time she gets out of the house?
Oh, you're right, because it's like the parasite's taking over but it doesn't have like full control. It's still hard, you know.
It's like when Plankton takes over SpongeBob's head in that one episode.
yeah. And yeah, like if they were coordinated, then they would just like they would wipe everybody out. Like they're just too athletic. But so now the three of them, so Tommy, Joel, his daughter Sarah, they pack up into the pickup truck, and you hear another neighbor, Denise, come out to investigate. Joel's like, "Get the fuck back into the house, Denise. Do you not see what is happening?" Flares are going off everywhere. We see the infected bodies of Mr. and Mrs. Adler now getting up and chasing the pickup truck. Full-blown zombie attack now. Tommy runs over the Adlers. I just wanted to mention, like, the POV in this scene is crazy because it's basically the POV from Sarah where she's sitting in the backseat of the pickup. So all you see coming out of the dash are just the headlights. And because it's nighttime, you don't see what the headlights don't illuminate. So it's just so wild. But anyways, the three of them try to escape via pickup. We now know that it's a virus that's infecting everyone, some sort of parasite. They don't know much more about it. We see a scene where people are on the street asking for help. They just drive right by. Good call. It's a zombie apocalypse. You're on your own. You can't be taking on kids, man. They're too much of a liability. They try to hit the highway to escape, but it's blocked off by the fucking army. First half of the pickup truck scene. What was going through your mind?
This is where you feel, and I could just be talking out of my ass right now, but this is where you feel the energy of a video game adaptation coming out in spades. You know what I'm saying? Like the way you have the blood rushing action, there's still complete and utter chaos, but you know, you have the squad behind the wheel and they're equipped for who knows what. But all we know is they're basically entering an Austin, Texas that is laid heavy with pandemonium, which not as much like the hipster haven that we know and love today.
Yeah, when we visited Austin, it was vastly different than what was portrayed here. Anyways, now we hear Joel basically say, like, we got to get to Mexico. So I think they got to cross through the city of Austin. Like, that's what's implied, right? It's complete chaos. And as they're driving like into the city, we see commercial planes fly dangerously close above them. Like, we're talking 100 feet. Maybe even less, like maybe 50 feet above them. City is in complete chaos. Cop cars are flying around everywhere. Store windows are being bashed open. It's a full-blown riot. People are panicking. The infected are already attacking everyone. It's carnage. All of a sudden, we see a fucking airplane crash into the street as they try to back up out of the city. Insane. At first, I was like, what is that? What is that? I thought it was a fighter jet being sent to shoot missiles like and just blow up the entire city. This was just a plane, like a commercial plane, just crashing less than 100 yards away, and a piece of the plane rips into the pickup and knocks everyone out. What the fuck, Damon?
This is huge because this is a device that basically breaks down the amount of security they have now. They are not really advantaged compared to anybody else at this point. They've lost the truck. They have to scatter, which produces the ultimate, why the fuck did we split up? What's going on right now? Of every single like dystopian horror movie ever, right? Where now they have to kind of spread apart. And this is where we start to see the major conflict, which is not necessarily, you know, we know the infection is spreading, but there's also this who can you really trust question that gets brought up here in a little bit.
That's a good point. That is the next level of all of this shit is, you know, you can't even necessarily trust the people who are to your left and your right. So now the crash happens and like we kind of get this, you know, wake up scene. Sarah wakes up, her ankle is broken, just bad. Like just bad.
She's not going to play through that one.
We know that she has to die because we understand that the show is set in present day. But it's like the entire time I'm just hoping.
You don't want it to happen.
You don't want it to happen. You've now grown to root for this character because they showed just, you know, how much love and humanity she has in less than a day. And I'm just hoping that she doesn't get infected because it would be brutal if like Joel had to kill her. Tommy and Joel happen to both be fine, but they're separated because basically they get thrown out of the pickup and then a fucking cop car or something like crashes into the pickup. So Joel picks up Sarah and he says, Tommy, let's go try to meet nearby that river. So as they head over, they obviously get chased by someone who's infected. This is terrifying because Joel's got to carry Sarah. So a terrifying diner chase scene follows. The infected is fast as fuck. I think it's called a cordyceps. Cordyceps. I looked that up. But anyways, he's seconds away from catching them when a soldier puts a bullet in him out of nowhere. So now the soldier points the assault rifle at Joel and Sarah. He radios into his commander to see what he should do. And you know what the commander's going to say. Army has your back, my ass. Well, at least in this show. Yeah, at least in this show. He gets the order to kill them both, Clearly, the army is operating on a take zero chances protocol, which is what the government would do if this went down. He aims the rifle at them and like starts to unload. And Joel literally jumps out of the way with Sarah in his arms, rolls over. Soldier walks up to Joel and he's about to, finish the job. He gets shot in the head by Tommy. Good shit, Tommy.
Tommy's not the best under pressure until he is. That was the redeeming moment.
Yeah, like he can be a fuck up, but he's got Joel's back. But it's too late. Joel's got hit a little bit by one of the bullets, but he's fine. He looks over, sees Sarah struggling. She got fucking hit in the stomach, and she ends up dying in her father's arms. Heartbreaking scene. Joel is freaking out, and when it cuts to Tommy, and he's just like in tears because he knows exactly what just happened. Like you're just like, wow, speechless. That's like we're like 20 minutes in, and they've already just dropped that on us. How do you bounce back, Damon?
That was a tough one. Actor did a nice job. She's actually the daughter of one of the main characters from Westworld before. So HBO keeping it in the family with that one. But she did a very nice job. But, parting is such sweet sorrow. So we get the flash forward. And where do we end up?
We end up in our hometown, Damon, where we live, present day Boston. Although it's vastly, vastly different.
Much less Ben Affleck, much more... I don't know. I mean, Haymarket is still a thing, but that's about it.
The MBT is definitely not running at this point. So we cut to present day Boston. It's 20 years later, so it's now 2023. Some kid, probably like 8 or 9, at most 11, stumbles out of the woods. He doesn't look too good. He arrives at Boston, and he basically just collapses right outside of the city wall. So this is basically like a quarantine zone in Boston. We're in post-apocalyptic America and just the world. There's concrete walls everywhere with barbed wire, keeping the healthy individuals, quote unquote, safe. So the guards outside of the quarantine zone, they see the boy collapse right outside. They bring him in. Obviously, you got to see if he's infected, right? Like you can't just bring anyone in. So he's tied up because they have to see if he's infected. One of the soldiers, I think she's a soldier. She's in like heavy armor and shit. She comes in, talks to the little boy calmly while another soldier runs the scan behind them. So it's basically this like, it almost is like a barcode scanner tag. Like, that's what it looks like. And if it turns green, you're good. Red, then bad. You're dead. Red, dead.
They hit him with the old yeller.
So we see the scan come back red, which means he's infected. The woman talks to him calmly, tells him it's going to be all right, but they give him the lethal injection. Tough scene.
Anyone who's ever been a 10-year-old knows that when somebody starts telling you they're going to get you all the toys you want after it's over with, is leading you on to like sure doom. You know what I mean? Like that is a trap if I've ever heard one.
Yeah. Like, I think my parents love me, and they've never said that to me.
Oh, way, man. Second time in what, 10 minutes of screen time, HBO has introduced us to a young character and then quickly off them, which just shows that, like, they're just getting the point across. You know what I mean? Like, they're just trying to show you the consequences of everything, the gravity of it, because, I mean, it's heavy stuff, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And speaking of heavy stuff, we cut to the next scene where it gets a lot heavier because... we see a bunch of people masked up, makeshift masks, dumping bodies into a fire. So we're presuming that these are now the dead infected population. You got to burn them because you can't let the fungus spread. We see our man Joel also dumping bodies. And one of the bodies that he ends up dumping is the little kids. So if you didn't realize that the kid died and they had to kill him, now you know. So Joel does it with a heavy heart. But remember, this is a guy that 20 years ago had to bury his daughter, essentially.
Man's been hardened.
So at this point, it's pure trauma and pain. Like that's what he's just living on every day. We cut to Joel then in line waiting to receive his ration ticket. Basically, this is the currency in the quarantine zone. You take on brutal jobs like dumping bodies in exchange for rations. Joel gets his tickets and then signs up for a sewage job. So then we see that the man working the desk, handing out the ration tickets, he has a FEDRA jacket on, which neither of us played the video game, but from what we infer, FEDRA is basically like the government or military power that's in charge of this quarantine zone. It's basically under military rule. Armed FEDRA soldiers are posted all throughout the zone. The jobs all suck, by the way, that the people get offered. There's no more consulting or iBanking gigs. You can't be a day trader anymore, unfortunately. So it's all about street sweeping, working the sewers, or dumping bodies, and you better make sure you know how to use a gun. So what do you think about Boston so far?
Yeah, they got no use for diamond hands in that economy.
Yeah.
I would say, based on living in Boston now, obviously like nothing alike, but there are a couple things that stick out. The curfews right, we see posted pretty strict, 6 to 6.
Yeah.
The symptom listing out on signs basically kind of puts in your mind like a militant COVID state from like back when COVID first happened. But like instead of like friendly reminders of like what could be going wrong, it was more just like big red warning signs. There's a guy who's actually wearing a Gore Lieberman shirt, which was
I saw that.
a presidential ticket that I think, if you want to read into it, maybe some sort of defiance to the federal government, because Bush would have been the president at the time of that '03 outbreak. So maybe it's like a, kind of like if we took a different path, maybe a more global warming friendly path, so the cordyceps wouldn't have taken hold.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because back to our point on like the whole messaging on global warming, what did Al Gore run on? A big part of what he ran on was climate change.
We laughed at him.
And we laughed at him. Like, we called him a clown. It's funny. But yeah, crazy intro to Boston so far.
Basically martial law, right? I would say.
Essentially. That's exactly. It's a police state. Then it cuts this overhead shot of downtown Boston. We see brownstone, so it looks like either South End, maybe Back Bay, maybe bits and parts of the financial district. I was hoping we'd see Faneuil Hall there too, but hey, you can't ask for everything. Boston's now a complete shit show, but the bright side is, property values are finally affordable. You could finally, get a brownstone in Boston. It's free. Just have a gun. So we throughout this cutscene period, we see 3 people about to be hung. And what's crazy is I had to rewind this a few times. Like, they were getting hung for either leaving the quarantine zone or entering the quarantine zone without authorization. So it's just a pure like fear-based rulership right now, right?
Yeah, the scene that it actually brought to mind pretty heavily. If you've ever seen any The Handmaid's Tale on Hulu, pretty solid show. The book is good as well, but like the public hanging is just the most fear-mongering, authoritarian way to get your point across to, sit down, shut up, my way or the highway sort of idea, which is clearly the stance that the feds are taking here. I think this is going to play into the future of the show, which is we're seeing these 2 forces that kind of later form that are directly oppositional to each other.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that literally flows into what we're going to talk about next with the next scene. Joel meets a FEDRA soldier in the corner, and he sells him pills in exchange for additional rations tickets, right? So the pills are like basically Oxy or some sort of painkiller, but they're called Hydro instead. The soldier and Joel clearly don't like each other. The tension is palpable. The soldier is short 5 on the payment, but he makes up for it with a bundle of cigs, which I thought was interesting. We're already like back into prison economy where cigs are currency. The soldier is supposed to help set up Joel with a vehicle, but the vehicle doesn't have any batteries. So the soldier then tells Joel, hey, stay off the streets over the next few days because, as Damon, you had just mentioned, there's this group called the Fireflies that have been blowing shit up all week. So if you haven't played the game yet, which neither of us have, we don't know what the Fireflies are yet, but it seems like a group that's opposing FEDRA. So we then see the graffiti tag, when you're lost in the darkness, look for the light. That seems to be what the mantra of the Fireflies. It just reminded me of a very demented version of what Dumbledore said to Harry Potter. But so yeah, like, what'd you think about that scene where Joel basically sells drugs?
Hey man, you got to do what you got to do to make a buck, I guess. I would say to that point, we see regression of society as a key theme in this post cordyceps outbreak. And I think the regression in terms of like their market, like it's just a bunch of bartering for illicit goods, basically. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. The conversation between the two when the soldier mentions how the factories in Atlanta only make bullets and pills now, like what a commentary on modern day America that is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I liked it because I think it clued us into the world building. I think it did a lot of world building without actually showing us a lot on screen, which is really cool. A little show don't tell, or tell don't show, but in a productive way rather. I think the belief system of the Fireflies, I'm interested to learn more about that because I think that's going to be a driving force throughout the show, it seems like.
Now we cut to an interrogation scene where a woman named Tess is being held hostage by 3 guys. So you could tell she's been roughed up a bit, but you can also tell that she's like tough as fuck, like right away. Just from the way she doesn't look beaten. She looks like she's like, you're lucky. Like, is that all you got? Is that all you got? But from what we gather, Tess was ripped off by the guy interrogating her. His name is Robert. So it seems like Tess paid Robert for a truck battery, but Robert then sold the battery to someone else and spent the $200 that Tess paid him. And then to make matters worse, like, this guy's a real dickhead. His guys have also roughed Tess up because he's in the wrong. Like, he felt guilty about it, and like his guys beat her up, and he's now scared that he's going to get backlash. from Tess's guy. We don't know who Tess's guy is yet, but Tess assures him that her guy won't come back on him. But whoever Tess's man is, like, her man's is fucking crazy from what we can glean. So as Robert's like, all right, fine, I'll let you go, because look, if you kill Tess, then like his guy's gonna, her guy is gonna chop your fucking balls off and feed them to you. So as he's about to let her go, an explosion happens, and then the entire side wall of the building is blown out. Robert survives, but one of his goons is just like destroyed on sight. Tess is okay, but banged up. She crawls out of the brownstone. She's now on the street while warning messages and blare on sirens throughout the city. Basically, a gunfight between the Fireflies and FEDRA has broken out. We get an idea, as you had mentioned, the Fireflies are a rebel organization that wants to free Boston from FEDRA. In fact, we actually get a fucking Fireflies soldier on the top of the roof, like shouting those exact words. Tess gets apprehended by some FEDRA soldiers, and they force her onto the ground. First introduction, like we see our first actual Firefly.
I like this scene because in such a show that started so heavy, like I feel like they've dealt us the body blows the whole time. We finally get a little comedic break here with this scene with this Robert guy who just is not confident. He has Tess there with two guys surrounding her. They've already beaten her up, and he's still not confident he's getting away with it.
She's got the leverage in the scene, which is wild.
He's like, it's almost like a Tarantino bad guy in the scene where he's just like you can tell he's a bit not to be taken too seriously, still worried as shit. And then once shit hits the fan and the wall blows in, it's kind of like maybe one of those guys got what was coming to him finally. But I think it showed kind of a lighter side of like the whole criminal system they had there. But overall, definitely a solid scene. And it just kind of keeps the plot moving as far as this conflict that I can't wait to dig more into.
Then we cut to a room where a young girl is being chained up and held hostage. Now, we know, like from the posters, like this is Ellie. We know her name is Ellie. But at first, she gives her name as Veronica. Keep that in mind, but that gets solved very quickly. But already, like, we could just tell that Ellie is tough as fuck. Has an attitude. She's already dropping F-bombs. She's smart. She's quick on her feet. And you can tell that she is not going to be easily subdued. So some of the people who are part of the group that captured her, they come in, like basically just ask her some basic questions to see if she's still, if she's infected or if she's showing any symptoms. And she isn't. And that's the scene. Just a quick scene. She's locked in the room. What's going on?
Leanna Mormont doesn't take shit. She's keeping her hard streak alive. You'd love to see it. I think that we also get kind of a preview to her background, where this is not just some run-of-the-mill like hostage situation. This is someone of value who appears to be, I think there's some hint at some military training in her past as well. So, I'm glad that we got her introduced a little late in the episode, but I think it's just how the timing worked out. So I'm happy to see more of it.
You could tell that despite being very young, she's like potentially dangerous. And I'm very interested to see like what other shit that she unleashes. But cut to the next scene. Joel is getting info on Tommy in this scene, essentially. So we cut to Joel pulling up to a building where there's a massive line. Now, this is where people come to relay messages to others, I believe via radio communication, Damon. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that's basically their main mode of communication with your classic codes as well. Because if you got two conferring sides and you want to keep your messages secret, they have this little key that we see later on in the show.
So now everyone in line, they're writing messages down on paper. So like this is basically the telegraph from back in the day. And we see some dudes with parts of their fingers amputated. So I'm guessing if you get bitten, if you cut off that part fast enough, you can prevent the infection from spreading to the rest of your body. Absolutely gruesome. And just such a quick scene. Like they don't even really focus on it. Joel cuts the massive line. Somebody says something, but like, what are you going to do to that guy? Like that guy will fuck you up. And he just goes straight to the front of the line. Walks into this small office where this old guy is running the whole operation. He hands the old guy the bundle of cigs that he got from the soldier. The old man fires up a dart immediately, and tells Joel that so far they haven't received any messages from Tommy. So now we know that Tommy made it to 2023. All right. Now, once again, we didn't play the game, but so now for us newbies, we know that Tommy made it to 2023, but his status is still up in the air. He's clearly missing. So Tommy hasn't responded in 3 weeks, we find out. And Joel is worried because Tommy usually responds within a day. So Joel then finds out that Tommy was out in Wyoming at a cell tower or something like that. It's called the Cody Tower, or maybe that's where his last message was from. We'll get more clarity on that. But according to the old man firing the dart, he says that's open country where anything goes. There's more dangers out there than just the infected. So it's the Wild fucking West. Joel gets the info and dips. What'd you think?
Go figure that our main inciting incident for this part is fucking Tommy. Everyone's got that unreliable brother or uncle somewhere in there in their family tree, but God, this man's just keeping it up. Again, we see more of the underbelly of the communication that's going on here. We get a better idea of how their society actually functions in general. And this kind of leads to a point where maybe the finest HBO binge since Colin Farrell in season 2 of True Detective comes after Joel gets the bad news.
So Joel then goes to bed. We get this scene where he's like warily returning to his apartment. Then basically what you just said, he just pops a bunch of pills, right? Basically the same pills that he was selling to the soldier, down some brown liquor, reviews a map, plots it out the same way fucking Lewis and Clark plotted out their journey throughout the Louisiana Purchase. And then he goes to bed. So basically he has to get fucked up out of his mind to go to bed because of just insane PTSD. And then moments later, we see Tess just join him, and she just big spoons him. So now we basically get confirmation that Joel is the guy that Robert is terrified of, and Tess and Joel are a couple and a team. Very, very interesting. They are now united. So now we get Tess and Joel as a team.
Which is good because I think our guy Joel needs some centering in his life. Yeah. I think he needs a little bit of chill to him. He's all reaction, not a lot of processing at this point, which, as you stated, that PTSD is worn him down. He's definitely dealing with a lot of stuff. He's been carrying a lot of weight. Just a little flashback to what we talked about before. He was the only guy on the crew who would take the dead kids' bodies and burn them. So he is clearly on a psychological level that needs some TLC to say the least. We get an interesting, more connections with the Fireflies after this too.
Yeah. All right. So now we stay in the apartment, and it's the next morning, and Tess is just cooking breakfast. Joel now sees her injuries, and they look pretty bad. Tess tells Joel the bad news. Robert fucked them over. So we find out that Joel wanted the battery so that he could take a vehicle out and find Tommy. So it seems like from earlier, the soldier was going to provide the vehicle. Joel was going to pay Robert for the battery. So now they can go get Tommy. So Joel's about to react violently when he finds that they got fucked over, and Tess calms him down, as you had just mentioned. And the plan, Tess is basically remain calm. We're going to go get Robert. We're going to find our money back, potentially kill him, get the battery, and then we're going to go find Tommy. But just be calm. Don't just go barging in there. Be strategic with this. That's basically what she says. So now we get a good glimpse into Tess's character, which I definitely want to hear you talk about. But she's a quiet killer, very, very strong. And we can tell that she's a survivor just like Joel. And she must have also been through some crazy shit to be built this way. They're both just super, super fucking strong. What's going on?
From a storytelling perspective, I couldn't agree more. I really want to know what her life was like before this all went down. Right. Was she always somebody who was down to get it out from the mud? Was she always kind of up to that? Or was she somebody like Joel who just had their life shattered? So it seems like everyone's life got shattered so handily that they've kind of just been grasping at straws to make an impact any way they know how to. What makes her tick? What are her motivations? We know that she has a connection with Joel in a romantic sense. We don't really know who her other associates are, who she actually trusts and rolls with. And we're not really sure what her family background situation is like right now either. So I think as we piece more of those together, I hope so. I hope they aren't just going to kill her off in the first few episodes. I really want to see more of her. I haven't checked the IMDb stats out, so I'm not sure how many she filmed. Yeah. But I really want to see more of her next time around.
And we're not going to do that for now, I don't think.
I want to watch it just like everybody else who would tune in would watch it, just straight up. We're not experts. We're just here to enjoy, just like you guys are.
We cut to the next scene where we're basically in this building in Boston, and we find out very quickly that this is the Firefly Base in Boston, in the Boston quarantine zone. And this is actually where they are holding Ellie hostage. So the leader of the Firefly squad is called Marlene. I actually really like her. Their role, their goal is basically to restore freedom and democracy by defeating FEDRA. So now we're getting a little bit more of an idea of what the conflict is like. And what I found interesting about this is it's the women that are running this operation. And Marlene is running this operation, and her second in command is this woman named Kim. So they're running this fucking operation. They are not to be like trifled with. And it seems like, Marlene has this big plan. So Marlene outlines the plan. They're basically going to gather all the Fireflies in Boston, take Ellie, and they're going to leave the Boston quarantine zone tonight. So nobody other than Marlene knows why Ellie is being held hostage. Kim, who I mentioned earlier, who's Marlene's second in command, doesn't quite agree with the plan, but she's loyal, and Marlene is strong as a motherfucker. So they're like, what she says goes, right? So ultimately, they want to take Ellie west. We don't know why yet, but we know that Ellie is extremely important to the Fireflies mission. So what'd you think about that? What'd you think about the intro to the Fireflies and to the leader in Boston?
Marlene, who was a holdover from the video game too, I believe. She played herself in the video game as well, so she's got some experience. She knows the character pretty well, which is great to see. Yeah. We definitely do get a sense that this is the revolutionary side, and this is like the oppressed forces like gathering up their might to try and make an impact against FEDRA, right? It's the David and Goliath story as usual, but we do have some nice female leads on this side. It's going to be cool to see how it breaks down.
Yep, 100%. So quick scene, then we cut to Joel and Tess. So they're scouring Boston, right? And they're finding out where Robert is. So they're basically bribing the people that need to be bribed to find out where Robert is located. They find out that Robert is actually trying to sell the battery, the same battery that he fucked them over with, the battery that he never gave them. He's going to sell the battery to someone else, and they find out where the deal is going to take place. So Joel and Tess are like, okay, now we're going to go ambush him at this deal. Quick scene. What'd you think about that? Just Joel's just basically chilling.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like this is right before they go to Haymarket, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, this is right before their trip on the Green Line. Yeah, they're just gearing up. This Robert guy, man, he's a scumbag.
Robert is a fucking scumbag.
He's a scumbag, man.
I literally have in my notes, Robert is a fucking slime ball. Oh man, the actor did a great job, like with the shifty eyes.
Yeah, the middle part.
So next scene we cut to is Marlene finally meeting Ellie. This was a super interesting scene. She slides Ellie her backpack, and Ellie goes inside and quickly fetches a switchblade, which I thought was interesting because earlier in the episode we had seen Sarah pull out a knife. Yeah, a very nice pocket knife, but Ellie's switchblade is much more efficient. We find out that Marlene is the reason why the Fireflies didn't initially kill Ellie. She soon frees Ellie from her chains. And from what Ellie says, we find out that she's basically an orphan. She's been in FEDRA military school since she was a kid. But Marlene reveals that she's the one who put her there. So it's basically like they planted one of their own in FEDRA military school so that she could have the skills, like a spy sort of thing. That's what it seems like. We find out that Ellie has a greater purpose. The Fireflies need to take her out of Boston tonight. Marlene then tells Ellie a vital secret. We as the audience don't know what this is yet. I have some theories. I want to find out very, very badly. But what'd you think about this part?
I like this introduction because you get two characters who have some similar energies going on here. And you also get to see Ellie gaining more knowledge as it goes on, where she's clearly like the brainwashed FEDRA side of things in the very beginning, but now she's getting learned up and is kind of getting a better understanding of how there are two sides to every situation here on this end anyways.
Next scene, we see Joel and Tess. They're on their way through Haymarket finally. They're using abandoned subway tunnels to ambush Robert at his deal. Side note, even the post-apocalyptic subway tunnels look better than the tunnels that the MBTA has today, so that's pretty fucking sad. But there's this one terrifying scene where we see a corpse glued to the wall. So clearly it was infected by the fungus and then like died as the fungus burrowed its way out or something like that. But it's super gory, super detailed, just scary as hell. The two then scale up a ladder from the tunnel to enter the building where the deal is going down. They break in and find Robert dead in the hallway already. The blood is warm. The battery is next to him, and like you had mentioned before, that battery is a piece of shit. It was never going to work. You got to sell that thing for like scrap metal, potentially. Essentially, Robert had a bad battery that was never going to work, and he was just trying to scam people. Clearly, he showed up, and he just thought he was going to take what he wanted, and the deal went wrong, and he's dead. So we see bodies strewn across the hallway. It seems like a mix between Robert's people and the Firefly soldiers. They're all dead from a very recent gunfight that just happened. Tess and Joel have their guns out. They're heading down the hallway, and they see Marlene wounded while Kim is helping prop her up. Prop her up. Out of nowhere, Ellie runs out to attack Joel, and he quickly subdues her. So Ellie is just like on site. Like we know she's down to kill. So now we're getting a clear picture. The other party that Robert was trying to sell the bad battery to was actually the Firefly. So his plan was to use that as an excuse to gain access to the Firefly stronghold and then basically rob them, like get the money and leave, right? By force. Plan goes wrong when they end up killing him. So now Marlene and Joel both needed the same battery, but for different missions. Tensions are high, and it's clear that Marlene and Joel have some history, right? And that history involves our man, Tommy. I think Tommy might have joined the Fireflies or something. That's what it seems like. And if someone who's listening knows the correct story, correct us in the comment section. But anyways, FEDRA is on the way soon because a gunfight just causes a lot of noise, right? Like you can't really keep a gunfight quiet unless everyone has silencers. But Marlene is bleeding out, but she implores Joel to take Ellie and escape the quarantine zone in Boston, basically saying, Joel, finish the mission for us. There's a team of Fireflies at the old State House. I love the Boston references. And Marlene wants Joel and Tess to take Ellie there and drop her off with the Fireflies group. Marlene's squad basically got decimated with the fight with Robert, so she can't take her there. She can no longer do it as well because she's wounded and she might die. So, there's that. But in exchange for getting Ellie out safely, the Fireflies, according to Marlene, we don't know if this is going to happen yet, but they're going to provide Joel and Tess with a fueled up truck, guns, and supplies. So they'll be able to get to Tommy. So Joel and Tess, I said Jess, but hey, we could call them Jess. They begrudgingly agree. And now the new squad is 3 of them, Joel, Tess, and Ellie. I just want to say the actress that plays Marlene fucking crushes it. She's fearless. She's a leader, but you could tell when she knows when to use force, when to use diplomacy. And I hope to see more of her, but she's probably going to die. So what do you think about that little standoff negotiation scene?
The one right before leading up to it, when they see the cordyceps corpse, that actually has a lot of similarities to some of the shots in the movie Annihilation. It's a pretty good sci-fi film, went under the radar just because it wasn't super marketable. But that movie features a similar kind of consuming organism that was kind of a stunning display with that corpse. Robert. Based on my limited knowledge of double crossing from watching The Wire and Game of Thrones, you have to be a cunning motherfucker to be able to double cross 2 different parties in a matter of 20 minutes of screen time and get away with it. Sadly, he just was not built like that. So Robert was not long for this episode. But we do get the focus readdressed back with Marlene. She's definitely a power player. We see that. Ellie, she's got that fire in her. She's got that dog in her. You can see in the eyes, which I think is going to pair really well with Joel. I mean, they seem to have a lot of similarities. And it seems like she's just sliding right into that vacant daughter role, honestly.
Yeah, because Joel seems to have those sad eyes that have seen a lot of pain. And Ellie has those fierce eyes where it's I'm going to fucking rip your throat out. So anyways, the trio head back to Joel and Tess's place before they leave. I think they're going to leave during the night, so they're just going to sleep, get as much rest as they can. Ellie sees a radio with a billboard book outlining the number of hit songs by decade. So Ellie quickly figures out that they use a smuggling code. She's obviously very intelligent, where songs communicate messages from 2 guys named Bill and Frank. And basically 60s songs means that they don't have anything new. 70s songs means there's new stuff. 80 songs mean danger. So she then points out that Joel's watch is broken, which is hurtful because we all know the backstory. Joel's daughter, Sarah, spent her last day alive fixing that watch. But yeah, this feels like, the episode is about to wrap up, and this just feels like the last calm before the final little storm. So what'd you think?
We get to see Joel and Ellie's chemistry a little more. I think they have a good thing working. I think that the fact that they're both darker figures is going to help out in the end, and I think it gives them a lot to jump off on and a lot to work with each other. The code, you just know they're going to be using that soundtrack code more than one time this season because it's just too good not to. It's just right there for the taking for all the soundtrack needs they got.
On that point, Stranger Things, this past season, season 4. I mean, that song by Kate Bush, "Running Up the Hill," right? Like, it went nuts because of, it got that boost again, after years because of Stranger Things. Like, there's gonna be, there might be some songs that get boosted off of this for sure. So now it's nighttime, and the trio finally start their escape. We get a shot of the FEDRA soldiers, like you had mentioned at the beginning of this video. It's Police State Central, man. They're roaming the streets at night. It's curfew. They're making sure everyone is staying inside. 6 p.m., man, 6 p.m. It's military rule and very scary. The trio use an underground tunnel to get past the quarantine walls, and they hide behind wrecked cars and buses to try and avoid the spotlight from the top of the walls. It's thunderstorming out, just awesome shots all around, like incredible scenery. It seems like they're in the clear, but then as they're walking away, they see the same soldier that Joel initially sold the drugs to. He's taking a piss. Yeah, he's taking a piss in the corner, spray painting the walls with urine, and then he sees them, points his gun at them, orders them all to get on their knees. You could actually see that he's down to negotiate. Like, his biggest concern at first is to see if any of them are infected, which actually made sense to me. I was like, because they're kind of both sides are going back and forth, and like you could tell he's got all the leverage here, so he's gonna take whatever they end up smuggling. But it seems like he's down to negotiate. So he scans Joel and Tess. They both come back green, which means clean. And then he scans Ellie. And before we can see what the scanner reads, she turns around and fucking stabs him in the leg with her knife. Just one swift motion. He's fucking pissed. I'm surprised he didn't unleash the gun right there, but he's about to shoot Ellie. Joel's, blocking him, basically saying, don't shoot her, don't shoot her. Joel has a flashback, as you had mentioned, the PTSD, all that stuff, back to 20 years ago when a soldier killed his daughter, Sarah. So out of nowhere, Joel just charges the soldier and pummels him to the ground and beats him to death. Totally different shows, but we've already mentioned it a few times. But in Game of Thrones, the actor who plays Joel, he was killed when the mountain was on top of him and crushed his eyes into his head. Now it's Joel on top of the FEDRA soldier, punching his face in until he dies. Had to be done, but I just thought it was pretty interesting. He's in a different position. He's in the opposite position. Ellie witnesses this, and she looks at Joel, basically just realizes, like, this guy is a bad motherfucker. He's him. And he'll do whatever it takes to survive. You almost, like, see this kind of, like, terror, awe, respect, like, all combined in one. All of a sudden, we see the scanner, and Ellie's scan came up red, which means she's actually technically infected, right? Based on what the scanner says. Fucking Tess freaks out, as she should. She's like, we should have fucking killed you then. But Ellie is basically protesting, saying, from what we understand from Ellie's protests, she had a wound from 3 weeks ago that got infected, but is 3 weeks old, and no one survives that long with the parasite inside of them. So she's different. So she's fine, but like, think about what I just said. So anyways, it won't be long until FEDRA arrives, so the trio quickly escape. What'd you think about that?
That scene was really important because I love the use of the congruent scenes. Some people might find it tacky or forced, but I think this one fit nicely where you have the parallels between, like you said, with the soldier shooting Sarah in the beginning, and then the same sort of threat was posed in this situation. And obviously that's going to make that PTSD flare right up. I like that because it gives the connection and it gives Ellie a boost into that kind of daughter role that I believe I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I believe she's going to assume that this season, like kind of like a pseudo daughter role for Joel. And I liked how they revealed Ellie's possible immunity in a way that was not super forced either. Because we've already seen the scanner used before. There was a reason they showed us that kid in the beginning who came up red. Like they wanted to plant that seed in our head from the get-go. Right. So I love the fact that it came full circle. From a writing perspective, I think this was very well done.
You can tell Joel probably lives with the regret that he didn't charge that soldier 20 years ago. Even though, like, you probably would have died. You both probably would have died anyways. But this time around, it's like you said, Ellie slides into the daughter role, and he's like, fuck that. I'm not, leaving this to chance anymore. I'm going to kill you. And it brings out an interesting side. And yeah, I do agree with you. Like, they do it in a way where they reveal that she might be immune to the virus in a non-forced way, because it could have been revealed, bad writing would have been Marlene being like, you're immune to the virus. Like, you're good, man. That's why we need you. We need your blood. And like, they didn't do that. They're kind of making us put the pieces together. So last scene cuts back to Joel and Tess's empty apartment where an 80s song comes through the radio. We know that means danger. end of the pilot. Wow. What did you think about that ending?
I liked it. I think it's Depeche Mode. I don't even know how to pronounce it. All I know is that they have that. Most of their songs are that sort of like 80s flat vibey, but like with the synth sounds too. But I like the way it built up the intensity. I'm really interested to see them take this on. Didn't it feel like the intro to a video game level? The sky high kind of view set was nice too. I really want to see how Ellie, as like the quote unquote chosen one, is going to develop with her, obviously her ability to fight off the cordyceps. That's going to be a huge driver for her action the whole season. Talk about an episode that maybe the slow start was probably necessary to really set the tone, but I think it was very uneven in terms of the way it paced its action. We saw the action right before the flash forward, and then we saw the heavy action. So some unbalanced action in this episode, but I think it's going to work out in the long run. And I think we're set up for a pretty big episode too.
Absolutely. All right. Well, hey, that's it for episode 1. Great start overall to a season. And I look forward to this show taking over the internet if it already, if it hasn't already happened. But we'll be back next week with recap of episode 2. So catch you guys later.